MicroProfile. My name is Ivar Grimstad. I'm a Java champion, and I recently started as a Jakarta EE developer champion, developer advocate at Eclipse Foundation. This is actually my first talk in this role. So, some words about me. I'm a member of the Java community process in the executive committee there. I'm also involved in the Jakarta EE working group and the development of Jakarta EE, and in the Eclipse Foundation as the developer advocate. I'm also involved in the MicroProfile projects. I'm a Apache NetBeans committer, and I run a local Java user group in Malmö in Sweden. And this is my Twitter handle if you want to follow me. Occasionally I tweet something sensible, and apart from that I retweet others. So, today's talk is about MicroProfile, and MicroProfile is actually currently Eclipse MicroProfile, and that is because it is an Eclipse project. So, if you navigate to the project pages at Eclipse Foundation, you'll find a MicroProfile there, and the mission of MicroProfile is to optimize enterprise Java for creating microservices. So it builds on a foundation of enterprise Java technologies and adds some stuff on top of it, so you can use that to create microservices. And the latest version of MicroProfile is version 3.1. It came out October this year. There will be a version 3.2 coming out next week or something, and I'll come back to that later, exactly why. As you see on the bottom here, we have well-known Java EE technologies or Jakarta EE technologies. It's CDI, which is context and dependency injection, which is used kind of to glue everything together. We have JSON-P, which is for JSON processing, JSON-B for JSON binding, and JAX-RS, which is for creating RESTful endpoints. So these are kind of the fundamental technologies of Java EE or Jakarta EE that you need to create a simple microservice. And on top of these, we have the new specifications for MicroProfile. And I say specifications, and this is important. So MicroProfile is a set of specifications, and these specifications are implemented by various implementations, and I'll show a wide range of them today. So I'll go through each of these in detail with demos. So I won't be showing much slides. It would mostly be this slide, and this is the most important slide of today. So from the top corner, we have open tracing, which adds possibility for distributed tracing. So you can use Zipkin or Jaeger to trace your calls across services. You have Open API that helps you generate Swagger documentation, so you can document your services very easily. We have a REST client, and it builds on top of the JAX-RS REST client, which is part of the JAX-RS specification, but it adds some nifty, cool features to it, such as you can type the client calls, and you can also generate the proxies to the call, so you don't have to write so much yourself. It adds configuration support, so you can configure applications externally, meaning that you don't have to rebuild your application if you change some properties. So you can use the system variables, environment variables, or a custom config source provided to you by your cloud provider or yourself. So you can have properties just injected in your application at runtime. It has support for fault tolerance, so you can create circuit breakers and fallbacks, so you can create applications that aren't affected if some of the services go down. It has support for metrics, so you can produce standard metrics used for example, by Prometheus to monitor your applications. It has support for JOT propagation, so you can have a JSON Web Token propagated from service to service with very little impact on your actual code. You get pretty good support for it. It has support for health checks, and the new health check 2.0 adds support for 2 health checks in addition to the regular one, so you can check for liveness and readiness as well. I'll demo that later. So these are the 8 specifications that are on top of the existing Java EE technologies that MicroProfile provide for you. And as I said, it is a specification. So these are some of the implementations out there. So when you develop a MicroProfile application, you can code to these specifications, and then you can switch the underlying vendor or implementation underneath if you find out that the one is giving you some benefits over the other. So you have Thorntail from Red Hat and Quarkus from Red Hat, Webs for Liberty and Open Liberty from IBM, Payara from Payara, Hammock is an open source project on GitHub, Cumulus is based on Jetty, Apache Tommy is from the Tommy tribe, built on Tomcat, adds the enterprise support to that. Helidon from Oracle and Launcher from Fujitsu. And there are more out there, but these are some of the biggest vendors that implement the MicroProfile. Another thing that MicroProfile brings to the table is Uber jars or hollow jars, or a possibility to run your application from command line. So traditionally, Java Enterprise is an app server that you deploy an application into. But technologies like Spring Boot has made it popular to create Uber jars so you can run it as a standalone Java process. So all these vendors provide some Maven plugin for you, or use the existing Maven plugins, so you can create an executable jar and run it from command line, as you would do with the Spring Boot application. They also have support various approaches to support the hollow jar approach, where you have a thinner application layer in case you want to have just your application layer very thin in your Docker container, and kind of the application server part of it as a separate layer that doesn't change that often. So, if you want to get started with MicroProfile then, well, the best way to get started with MicroProfile is to go to microprofile.io. This is a web page. It's an old screenshot since it shows version 3.0 there. I'll be using 3.0 in this demo. And the best way to get started here is to use the starter. So you click on this and you get a dialog to get started with MicroProfile. And this is where I'll start the demo. So I'll open the starter page and show you how to get started there. So you go to microprofile.io and click on the starter, which is a beta currently. I'll blow it up a little. So as you see, it's MicroProfile, start microprofile.io. That's where you go. If you can't remember microprofile.io, then remember start microprofile.io, and this is where you find it. So if you want to generate an application here, let's call it, for example, Eclipse Eclipse.con. And I'll just the latest version, since we always want to go into the latest version. And you see here it pops up some examples I can generate. I'll choose some of them maybe later, but in the beginning I'll just create an empty application. And when I choose the version here, I get the implementation of that implements this. And the implementations of 3.0 is Thorntail, Helidon, and Open Liberty. So if I choose another MicroProfile version here, I get another list of vendors. So depending on which version I want to start my application on, you have a different set of vendors supporting it. So whatever implementation is your favorite, you can just choose accordingly. Well, I'll go to the latest version, and I'll choose Helidon for this one. So, and then I just download this. It's as a zip file, extract this zip file, and then I can open this this project. Let's see. There we go. Sorry about using the wrong IDE here, but this is kind of what I had installed. So you get the project up. The POM file is pretty simple. You see, you have if you're well known in the Java EE world, you see that you have a provided dependency for you, and that's in this case the MicroProfile 3.0 dependency is provided for you, And the reason it's provided is you don't need to package this into your application since it's provided to you by the implementation. And in this case, the implementation is Helidon, so you get a configuration for how Helidon does its stuff to build this application. So what I can do when I've downloaded this one is to simply say maven clean package and just build it. So you see, it's just select the stuff you want, download, unzip, build, and now I can run it. So if I look at in the target folder, you can see I have a jar generated for me. So I can start this one, Java jar, target, Eclipse, gone down. And you see, it starts pretty quick, and I can navigate it to it and see here it has a JAX-RS endpoint that says hello world, which is not very super advanced or interesting, but you see how easy it is to get started, and now you have kind of the framework to start doing things. What you also get here is, and we can look at the code a little bit. So the code has an application class, and if you're familiar with Spring Boot, you usually have a main application. In this case, it's extending the JAX-RS application, and it just says this is the application path, and other than that, you really don't need anything here. The controller is a simple JAX-RS resource. It's the add path hello, and it just says hello world, which it does here. So this is all the code that is there. So another thing you get for free from MicroProfile is the metrics. So if you remember the Prometheus metrics, you can see here that you have Prometheus metrics generated for you, and these have different types. So you have the base metrics, which is something that is required by the specification. So everybody has it, no matter which implementation you choose. If you choose one from IBM or Red Hat or Oracle, it always has these metrics. You can trust them, and you can rely on having these metrics. And they also have some vendor-specific metrics. So these are something you can do if you're, in this case, an Oracle customer, and you are going to be an Oracle customer. You can depend on these. These will be here, but they won't be there if you choose to go with an IBM or Red Hat product. And you also have application specific metrics, but then you have to annotate the classes with these stuff to show them. So another thing you get for free is the OpenAPI generated for you. So if I go to OpenAPI, or in this case it actually downloads a file, I'll use another implementation to show this. So this is how easy it is to get started. If I, for example, wanted to add some metrics to this application and say that, hey, I want this method counted, I can rebuild this application and run it again, and then I should have some application-specific metrics. And as you see, it's pretty fast starting up. I can go in here to the metrics. I can hit the hello endpoint a couple of times. Go back to the metrics, reload this one, and see it should have some application metrics somewhere. Yeah, so you see, I've hit this method 4 times. So this is how easy you can sprinkle your application with different kinds of metrics to have it served to your Prometheus if you want that. And you see, there are no extra starters needed to add it. There are no extra configuration. I just added the annotation in the code, and that's it. So just leave this one running, and let's go out here and generate a new one, or let's look at the slides again. So what I demoed now is the metrics, the OpenAPI. So let's continue and look at the health checks. So, and to this, I'll just generate another application also, so we can look at the other vendors. So let's call it this one Liberty and choose the Open Liberty. And download this one. And as you would expect, it's just unzip this one as well. Go in here and open the project. So in this case, you see the dependency is exactly the same as it was with the Oracle example, but here you have the tools from IBM to use it with Open Liberty. And the source that is generated is exactly the same. It has some other. I wonder where these came from. Okay, so. Okay, I see it. It's an old project when I tested this. So I'll actually delete this one. Let me do that. So I can run the demo from the beginning. I'll call it something else there. Just picked up an old IntelliJ configuration. So I'll just download it there, open it there. Sorry about that. So the source here is exactly the same as the one you had. You have the application path and the Hello World controller. What IBM has done with Open Liberty is actually something cool. If I do a build of this one, and when that is done, I'll, rather than running it as a jar, which I could do because it generates a jar for you, they've introduced something called the dev mode. So you can run it and do the changes, and it will just hot deploy them on the fly for you. Let's see here. So it's built, and as you can see in this one, I have the jar generated for me as I did with the Oracle example. But in this case, I'll use the tooling from IBM and Liberty Dev. So I just started in dev mode. And you see it's pretty fast up and running, this one as well. Let's see which port is it running on. There, 8181. So if we go into local host 8181, data hello, it should say hello world, which is what you would expect. So let's see how we can configure this or add some health checks to this one. So what I'll do is to add a simple class. I have a template for it here. I call it Duke Alive. And what this one does is it implements the health check interface, and it is annotated with the aliveness annotation, and it says Duke is alive. So when you do health checks in your application, if you run them in Kubernetes, for example, you want to have two checks. You want to have one for aliveness and one for readiness. The aliveness one is to just tell Kubernetes, hey, I'm here, don't kill me. The readiness is to tell Kubernetes, hey, you can send traffic to me. And you don't want to mix these two, because the readiness test can take some time to get up. And if it takes some time to get up, and you mix that with the liveness probe, and Kubernetes asks, are you alive? And you're still figuring out if you're ready, then Kubernetes would kill you before you're ready. So you need to separate these from each other. So I'll also create a readiness probe. So this one has the at readiness annotation, and it says Duke is ready, while the liveness probe says Duke is alive. And you see, it hot deploys directly. So if I now go in here and say, go to the health endpoint and say health/live, it just, okay, sorry about that. Did I write it wrong? Oh, it's not on data, it's there, health live. So you see it says Duke is alive. And if I say, want to check the readiness probe, I say Duke ready, and it says Duke is ready. Or I can go to the root of the health check and get all of them. So I get both the ready and the alive check. So you see, it's pretty simple to add these health checks to your system. You can even do it at runtime. So say that I want to configure this to say something else than world here. Then I can use CDI to inject a property. And what I inject is a configuration property, which is called injected value. And it's a string. So I inject this value, and rather than world, I can say plus this, plus value. And then I can configure it, and I can do it, for example, in my configuration file like this one, so it will inject the value, injected value. Or I can override it by setting an environment variable or a system variable. So if I go in here now and say, look at the data, hello, it will say hello injected value. But this is a part of the application, so you don't want to ship this. So what I do is I'll just stop it. I won't rebuild it, but I'll just start it with the jar approach. I'll say set the injected value as a system property is Eclipse con, and then I'll run the jar from command line. So I'm not rebuilding it. I'm just doing a run of it. Well, I hope that the dev mode does the compilation of the new stuff as well. Oh, it doesn't. Okay, crap. I need to rebuild it actually. So because it just builds on the classes, so it doesn't generate the jar file for me. So I just say a package. So and then a system property will override the injected value from the property file. So the property file is typically something you would use for a development environment on your laptop when you implement this stuff. And the system variable is something you would set in, for example, in your Docker container or Kubernetes environment. So if I run this one now, it should say hello Eclipse con. So it's Eclipse con. So it's configured. So what I also want to show is the REST client. I'll keep this one running for here. So I'll go in here and I'll generate a new application. And now I'll call it Eclipse con Thorn and use the Thorntail implementation. I'll download that one, unzip it as you would do with any one of this, and open it up. So I've got the application here, and you see it's exactly the same application, and I think, at least I experienced this morning, that Thorntail has a little problem with running on latest Java version, so I just set a one I'm pretty sure works. So I'll rebuild it afterward. What I want to do here is to create a new class, or an interface actually, which I'll call hello service. And this hello service should be annotated with an JAX-RS annotation saying hello. I'll annotate it with being a register REST client. And I think I need the dependent annotation as well. And I'll add a method saying string hello. So this is all I'm going to do for this one. I don't need the public even. So, and then I'll go into the configuration and configure this. And you see, it's always already here, so I'll just hello service. And I'll point it to my Open Liberty implementation, which has client hello. And as you remember, the Open Liberty says hello EclipseCon. So if I go in here and say that this hello controller should call the Open Liberty microservice, so here I'll inject the REST client, the hello service, and rather than hello world, I'll say hello and also plus hello service. Hello. So you see, I do a call to my interface that is generating a proxy to the call and calling a service. So the only configuration I add is to set the endpoint of the service I'm going to call. So that will say hello EclipseCon, and I say hello, and then the result of this calling service. So if I build this one, and this one will generate a jar for me as well. So if you use the kind of the program model from Java EE, where we create a WAR file, this is more familiar if you come from the Spring Boot world to just create the jar files. So I'll just run this one, and it gets the suffix of Thorntail. So I'll just start this one. So it's picking up and installing the fractions that is needed for, oh, it didn't work. Something is wrong here. So I'm not sure why this one wouldn't go. Oh, it's a port conflict with the one I already have running. So I just have to find the Helidon one. Is it this one? Let's see, this is Liberty. This is Thorntail. Where do we have Helidon? This one. So I got a port conflict, so let's go back to this one here and start it again. So now it should be ready, and if I go to this one on localhost 8080, data, hello, it should say something that I didn't expect. Okay, so I probably have written it wrong in the configuration here. Let's see. Hello service. Yeah, so the root of the service is /data, so I have to rebuild it again. So now it should work. So what I'm doing now is to show how easy it is to call another microservice using the microservice REST client. So now it should say hello and then call the hello, and if it doesn't work, then I'll go and do something else. Okay, it won't work. So the next thing I want to show you is, if I have time for it, I'll do some. Do you want security or fault tolerance? fault tolerance. Okay, so I'll look at the fault tolerance, and how this one works is that I have a hello resource, which is very similar to the one I've been showing you. What I've done here is to set a timeout value of 3 seconds to this service. So I can annotate that any method of this will time out after 3 seconds. And then I say that, hey, I want a structure breaker here. So if it fails 3 times in a row, I want a delay for 5 seconds. And to just provoke this to happen, I say that I have a counter here, and I count to 3, and the first 3 times I want to sleep for 10 seconds, which is more than 3. That will ensure this timeout to happen. So the circuit should open after 3 tries, and after the 4th, it should let them go through again, after 5 seconds. Okay? So, let's see, I have to go to the deck, and I just have to make sure. I think this one is dependent on Java 8 as well. There we go. So I think this one is built as well. So jar target. So this one is running on a server called Pyara, and that is the 4th implementation. So this is a MicroProfile 2.2. And while it's starting up, I'll prepare my browser a little bit so to make this a little easier. So what I'll do is to use 4 browsers at the same time and hit this URL. I'll just have to check, start it, where are they? There we go. And I think it's on, this is the open tracing microservice patterns, this one. So this one is on 8080, I think so. Yeah. And it has the /hello. And it's there, okay. So I'll go in here and I say localhost 8080/hello. So this is the URL I'll be hitting. So I'll do this in 4 browsers, more or less at the same time. And you will see what happens. So I hit this one, I hit this one. Did it go wrong? Oh, it says localhost, so I'll just continue. There we go. So you see, the 3 first times it should time out, and if I go in here, it says hello number 4. And this one is actually a fault-tolerant time exception. So this is accepted that I should get this exception. What I could do if I don't want to have the exception thrown out that way is that I can go in and set a fallback. So in this case, I could do a fallback handler and have this fallback handler do say something else. Or I can point it to a fallback method that will do the thing when the timeout exception happens. Unfortunately, we don't have time for showing that, so I'll just go back to my slides and wrap it up. So what I did now was to show the configuration, and I then demoed the REST client, or sort of demoed, and then I did show you the circuit breaker functionality with the fault tolerance back. What I didn't have time for was to show you the job propagation, but if you just come up to me during the conference, I can demo it on my laptop. And also the open tracing, where you can trace your requests over services and look at them at Zipkin, for example. So to sum up, the MicroProfile implements a lot of the microservice patterns. So if you look at the pattern catalog of the microservice patterns on microservices.io, you will see that all of these specs correspond to one of the patterns there. So another thing we're working with currently is the relationship between Jakarta EE and MicroProfile. And I'm just saying, stay tuned, join the mailing list, and join in on the discussion, because Jakarta EE and the relationship between Jakarta EE and MicroProfile today is that MicroProfile builds on Jakarta EE technologies. And we want to make it sure that Jakarta EE also can use the MicroProfile technologies in the future. So the stuff I showed on this talk is on my GitHub. You can read about the microservice patterns on microservices.io. You can read on MicroProfile at microprofile.io. Remember, start.microprofile.io, and Jakarta you can find on jakarta.ee. With that, I think we have -2 seconds for questions, but I'll take a question or two. No questions? Okay, remember to vote for the session in the app afterwards. Thank you.